Why, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I'm your hosting guide, Zollin Ironshield, and today we're going to do a review of Episode 7 of the Rings of Power, my friends. So I am your hosting guide, Zollin Ironshield. This is on my Zollin's Opinion playlist. So, real quick, right off the bat, I know I say this in every video, but you guys, this is my opinion, right? This is Zollin's opinion. I want you to enjoy yourself. If you just want to watch this, if you agree with me on things or disagree with me on things, that is totally fine. I don't want to make it where I help decide for you if you like the show or not, right? You just want to know what Zollin's opinion is. I know a lot of you asked, so that's why I've been making these at all. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made these. But all together, I'll do a little bit more info. I'm making both 7 and 8 at the same time reviews because I missed 7 last week. But we're going to make 7 right now, and then I'll have 8 come out right after this within a certain little bit amount of time. And I've got some stuff to say about 8 too. I actually enjoyed 8 a lot. 7 for me was not necessarily, I'm just gonna give you a rating right off the bat right now. It was fine. I didn't really I didn't dislike anything about it, but I also really didn't like, it wasn't fantastic for me, episode 7. It felt like a lot of they were tying stories together, right? Like a lot of their little stories. And I've got to say it in the way that makes sense for you guys, that I don't really think people should be getting so upset over things, right, with it. Again, the bottom line is, for me, with this series, is honestly, counting episode 8, it really left me feeling rather good. I actually was like, oh, that was very enjoyable. But for me, personally, I had to break it down. So I have 2 areas of thought in my mind, okay? And this is really important. And I'll probably reiterate this in episode 8. But there's 2 areas of thought in my mind, you guys. So I have one area of thought that a standalone fantasy series, Rings of Power, it's really good. I've really been enjoying it. There's a couple spots here and there where the story plot telling isn't great. So I'm I totally get why some people are oh, well, that's the one downer. It's yeah, there's a couple spots the cutting floor. It seemed like there could have been some things changed that would have made it better. Maybe there's stuff we didn't get. I don't know. But otherwise, I actually have enjoyed a lot of the characters, a lot of the made-up characters. I've really enjoyed the series in that way. But now, if I get my other side of my mind, and I basically go, now let me try to place it to the canon or the actual lore, right, of what we know that Tolkien tells us. And now I know there is always the argument, right, that, oh, well, they didn't have all the rights. Well, at this point, we know what they had rights to at this point, and obviously they changed story things just because they wanted to for storytelling's sake in their version of the storytelling, which is fine, because they had the rights to do that. But from a point of view of tying it to the lore, for me, I just couldn't. It made me feel. I personally felt it could have been better, right? If we were trying to tie it to the actual lore. But I'm not saying, again, I want to make it very clear, you guys. There's 2 sides in my brain, right? There's 2. We all have multiple opinions as human beings, and I'm afraid what you just heard in your ears was, yo, Zollin didn't like it. Or the other way around, that Zollin only, he loved it. How could he love it? It was totally against the lore in so many ways. Guys, no, my point is, if I do 2 areas of thought, this is how I'm enjoying the series, okay? Because I'm still, honestly, I've enjoyed it thoroughly, still, right? But my one side of me is disappointed because I feel like it could have been better if they actually had been trying to tie it better with the actual stories, right? The actual lore, which again, as my little thing over here on the side, you have my lore correct and likes. You'll see in the next 2 reviews of episode 7 right now and 8 that my likes will be up there. A lot of likes that I enjoyed parts of it. I might not have as many lore corrects because there's so much ways they changed off things. And again, creative license, I understand. And the thing is, Tolkien did leave a lot of area for creativity. The thing is, for me, and a lot of people don't realize this who don't know the lore very well, which again, maybe if I didn't know the lore, I would have enjoyed it even more, right? Because I enjoyed it. If I put it in my head, if I split it, and I go, okay, I really did enjoy the show as a whole compared to other fantasy series lately. It's one of the best ones I've seen. My friend was saying that too, right? I think Jethros mentioned that. He thought it was one of the best fantasy shows he's watched just as a standalone fantasy show in a long time, right? At least in my opinion, as standalone. And I'm I agree with that. I think it's better than most that have come out in the last 5 years. But when it comes to the lore, it doesn't quite connect entirely. And again, that's my other side, because so what I did, and I've been telling you guys this, is I have split it, right, in my mind. I have said, okay, I'm going to enjoy the show as a fantasy show by itself, set in Middle-earth, like a multiverse, right? It is they do different things, different stuff. And again, back to my previous thought that I kind of interrupted myself. people are like, oh, well, you know, they didn't have the rights to things, so they couldn't do everything. Well, the bottom line is they had rights to a lot of things, and they still changed a lot of big plot points with the rights they had. So they obviously changed a lot still, right? Which means at a certain point, it's hard to now connect it with a realistic setting to the actual original story plots that are told to us in Tolkien's words, right? So, like, you can, like, there's parameters that you could be like, oh, I can see where that fits in, where they're trying to say that storytelling, that kind of thing. But you can't, like, for me, as someone, I do a lot of fan lore, or like, you know, of my own, and I try really hard when I make something up that it fits, that it would make sense, and it doesn't contradict anything in Tolkien's actual words at all, okay? So in Rings of Power, there are a lot of things that contradict Tolkien's words. That's the bottom line. People can argue with me, but it does. All right, guys, it does. That's not saying I dislike the TV show, guys. Don't misunderstand. And I'm not saying you should hate it, and I'm not saying, you know, if you like it, great. I've also liked the TV show. I like it. I've enjoyed it. I definitely like it more than I disliked it, okay? I've enjoyed it. I thought it's a good show, good fantasy series. I just think they've changed so much that for me personally, when I think about the actual lore, I can't nor connect it. I can see the parameters of, okay, well, this sort of makes sense. So they changed this and they hooked it to that storyline of the original, and this. I can do that in my mind, but at a certain point, it just becomes tiresome in my head. So what I've done is said it's going to be a multiverse in my mind. Okay, does that make sense? What do you guys think of that, right? What do you guys think? Again, I don't want to be this person who's just like, I'm just here to hate on the show. It's like, no, I'm not, actually. And I'm also not here to completely give it 100% praise. Of course, I'm going to criticize the things that I personally didn't like. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy it, guys. All right, don't feel like this is an attack on your thoughts and your views on something you liked or disliked. So anyway, let's go through episode 7 right now. Let's talk about, I will go through clip by clip. I can't do sound, as you guys know. We're going to go through clips, basically. And I'll do likes and lores, things I disliked, things I really didn't like with changes with lore. Here we go. Again, there might be multiple things. There might be something that I enjoyed for storytelling change, but I didn't, enjoy for, like the actual lore change, right? So like it might be fun in one side of my mind, like, oh, I did enjoy that, how they did that, but I don't like the fact that it's completely different than the original lore. But that doesn't mean I didn't like it, right? Again, that's what I'm trying to get across to you guys, is that we can have multiple thoughts in our head at once about certain things, right? And it doesn't mean, when I feel like people with movies are like, I hate everything about it, right? Because they hated like part of it. Or vice versa. I loved everything, but they don't criticize anything, because even though there's one or two things they didn't like really when they watched it, but most of it they liked, so they just say the whole thing's amazing. Which again is fine to do at a certain point, right? If that's how you want to think of it. Me personally, I like to be a little bit more critiquing, and I like to be like, I like that, I dislike that, I like that, I dislike that. I don't like to just throw the whole baby out with the bathwater either way, right? Does that make sense? So again, this series, season 1, if you want to know, it's left me feeling good overall. So anyway, let's go into this. All right, so first things first is we see these scary people again, okay? They do not feel threatening to me at all, all right, in episode 7. So we're talking about episode 7 right now, right? So I'm going to say dislike. They have nothing to do with lore, it doesn't matter, but they just did not feel threatening to me. This is actually a recap, so we're going to skip through that. So maybe we'll wait to do... let me jump through here real quick. All right, let's get straight into this now. I know you guys waited a whole 7 minutes for my little spiel at the beginning, and if you did, I appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, too, if I earned it. Again, I feel like I'm probably one of the more middle positive. You know me, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I don't like to be negative. I'm not a negative person, right? So the only times I'm negative about things is something that I just disliked, right? That I'm honestly telling you, because this is an honest review. I'm not gonna hide what my feelings were on every part as we go through. All right, so anyway, Galadriel wakes up, right? So the volcano went off in episode 6, right? We know that. She's like, whoa, what happened? All right, so for one, I have to start scientific point of view, realism. Okay, I am someone who likes realism even in my fantasy. I know people are like, but it's fantasy. It's like, yes, I know, but it has to have some realism, right? If that volcano was like Anui Ardente, which if you don't know what that is, it is a fast-moving explosive smoke, basically cloud that comes out of a volcano. And whatever it hits, it's super hot. It's hundreds and hundreds of degrees in Fahrenheit or, Celsius, maybe you want to do the conversion. And it will instantly turn you to a pillar of salt. Like that. Like Now, I don't think elves have any special ability to prevent massive heat. Dwarves do. Elves don't. Okay, that's a lore thing. But again, there's a possibility where they live, right? For one, she's an elf, so I'm sure her lungs have the ability to not be damaged by this massive amount of, you know, ash and debris. So that's fine. And again, is it super cool for the movie? Oh, heck yeah. So anyway, I'll leave the dislike there for this, okay? Dislike the unrealism there, but I do like the fact that this whole scene is pretty cool with everything's like destroyed. So again, little like, little dislike there. But it's still like, it's like, wow, okay, now it's Mordor. So that's why I like the idea, right? Because like, Mordor has begun, right? Again, I think the whole idea with the volcano exploding, Tolkien does not tell us how the volcano ever turns on or starts in Mordor. So I thought that was very creative, and that can fit in the lore, okay? Which I know I've told you that in the last review. I love that. I like the volcano explosion. It was super cool. I like the idea that they used the lake to put it into the ground and make it explode, which is a real thing. That's a real scientific thing. That's how a lot of volcanoes go off. Their heat, magma hits underground rivers, water, and causes pressure and causes an explosion, right? All right, so I like that. I thought it was really cool. So now we're going to go through here. So she's walking around. She's actually, I'm going to say I like this about her. She's really like, she's like worrying about people. She's trying to help people, right? That's more of the Galadriel I envision as that character. Again, at this point, remember, I'm comparing a lot of things as a multiverse version. So again, I'm not going to always one for one I'm not going to be as negative about certain things now than I probably was in previous reviews, because I'm looking at it as more of a multiverse, right, at this point. Okay, does that make sense? So again, like her, as she's a very different personality. And by the way, some people really like how the Galadriel is in Rings of Power. They've told me that, and I do like some stuff she's been doing in these last episodes. I have enjoyed some stuff, and per previous episodes, so that is good. That's a positive thing. But again, she's very different than the Galadriel I know from any of the storytelling, of whether it be from Tolkien's words in the books or from the Lord of the Rings Online, right? Which is the music you're hearing, by the way, in the background, from Lord of the Rings Online. Great music. But yeah, so anyway, I like that she helps the kid, right? She helps I still call him the kid. I'm sorry. He's a great, I like his acting. Okay, I've actually enjoyed his acting. I'm going to give that a like, because I thought, again, a lot of the made up characters that are in the actual books or stories are very good. So I definitely like a lot of the stuff they're doing. So now they're like, oh no, this guy's squished. So he helps his friend out. And then, of course, from a storytelling perspective, you know, his other friend is dead, right? Spoilers, by the way, guys. There's going to be spoilers. I'm reviewing the video. Come on. You all know that, right? I just like this from a storytelling perspective, dislike, okay? I was like, I knew it was coming. I'm like, oh, they're going to kill one of the friends. Here we go, right? It was just so obvious that was going to happen. So, I do find there's a few things they did that were very not obvious, that I did know was coming, but they were very well done. So we'll talk about that in episode 8. A lot of it's in episode 8, obviously, right? So anyway, he's like, oh no. And then they see people caught in the house, right? So they go in to help. His friend is like holding the beam of the house, which is like, whoa, and a seal door. And then basically the house collapses on a seal door. And at the same time, it blinds Muriel, right? It blinds the queen. So she gets blinded by the sparks, right? I was like, okay, that's kind of realistic, right? That's cool. And then we get after that a situation happens. We go here to the hobbits, basically, and the Meteor Man, which we're gonna know who he is pretty soon. Yeah, I already know because I watched episode 8 already. But we're gonna just go through this step by step, and then you can go watch episode 8 and you can see what I think about all that. And this whole part, beautiful. The scenery is just gorgeous. I enjoyed it so much. Again, I like the Hobbit family. I've really enjoyed the Hobbits. Again, you know me, with when it comes to the lore, I was very, very skeptical. I was like, Hobbits aren't supposed to really be there, but it is, in my mind, believable that the Hobbits could be there at this point in the timeline, okay? In the Second Age, in the late Second Age. I do think it is possible. Okay, Tolkien says they come around in the Third Age, but he doesn't say that they never were in the Second Age. So there's a area where that could be plausible, right? So again, or this is a multiverse version, and Hobbits came out in the Second Age to the Third Age in this multiverse. Okay, You get why I'm saying the multiverse now, right? You understand it helps me enjoy it more because I don't have to I'm not obsessing over trying to see how are they linking this to the actual story. And it's like, you can still see the parameters of what they're linking to the actual stories. But then I can enjoy what they're doing with their storytelling because I don't have to worry about connecting it to the actual lore. And again, I'm going to start considering multiverse standalone fantasy, The Rings of Power. But with a twist, with the parameters of some things being what we know from the actual Second Age books, right, from Tolkien. All right, so anyway, they're going through here. They're pulling up the wagon, and then they get up here and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" And there's like basically when the volcano went off, it launched rocks right all over, and they are in northern, or they are like the south side of almost to Mirkwood or Greenwood at this time, which is his correct lore thing, by the way. I would like to say correct and give them a correct point with the fact that they're using the term Greenwood. So like again, set in even a multiverse set in the same world, right? Same fantasy land. So basically they got launched really, really far from the volcano. They're like, whoa, what are these? And their whole pretty area with all their fruit that they were going to get was destroyed. And then he's basically like, oh man, this is terrible, right? They're all fried. And so he does some magic on this tree, right? And he doesn't think it works, basically. So I was like, okay. Again, this guy, he's a good actor. I really like this actor that they have. Yes, so that is a like for me. I'm going to give that a like because his acting is really good. So he tries to do it, but it doesn't work out. And then everyone's kind of scared because it was kind of scary how he did it. And he's like, oh man, I guess it didn't work, right? The magic or whatever. So then we flip, and again, this whole episode 7 seemed very like a bunch of little pieces being strung together for me. Beautiful scenery. Again, I'm going to get a lore correct. I know you're like, wait a second, how does that work? I love the fact that they still used a lot of New Zealand shots that feels like Middle Earth that we know from Peter Jackson's adaptation, which again also is not technically exactly lore, right? Peter Jackson's, except in my mind, Peter Jackson's, if you take his, 90% of his can easily fit into the actual lore. Like a lot of it is actual straight from the book information, right? Word for word. And what Tolkien describes. Again, much easier to do with The Lord of the Rings because it's a novel. It's not just more of a history or book or encyclopedia, kind of like the Second Age is with a lot of the information, because there's so much information. So a little bit of leeway for Rings of Power there. But again, I still think they could have been better. But I mean, anything could always be better. I think it also could have been far worse. I think that it's actually good. I think it's still a fun series. Like, I still think it's good. So, again, don't hear that and just pick one side that Zollin suddenly said it was amazing or said that it was horrible. No, it's good. It's good, guys. I liked it. It was enjoyable. All right, so now we get this, and we hop back. Elrond is with and they're asking the other Durin. Again, this is a lore discrepancy that I don't like. Okay, there's 2 Durins at once. In the lore, it's very clear. So here's why. Here's a little hint at why, when I say that they're really not following the lore where it can fit at all, that it's important. Whereas a lot of people are like, oh, but they didn't have all the, there's a lot of stuff left out in between. They can make stuff up. Well, that's true. That's true. But it's very clear in Tolkien's words that there is only one Durin at once, because the dwarves believe that they're incarnated, okay? So that's a huge story twist to say there are 2 Durins at the same time. It doesn't fit with what Tolkien wrote at all. It's complete contradiction, actually. So those are the kind of things that, for me, I'm enjoying it still. I've actually really enjoyed the relationship between the 2 Durins. I think it's cool, the father-son thing going on. This episode, I didn't quite like as much with how intense the dad gets, but yeah. So anyway, you get my point. Let's keep going. All right, so he asks him, you can watch it for all the details, obviously, guys. But basically, he asks everyone to go out, the other people, and he basically says, I'm not going to risk my people for, I'm not going to risk them. Which he has a good stance, right, from a storytelling perspective. He doesn't want his dwarves to get killed in mining for this stuff just to save the elves, right? It's like, it makes sense, even though, and again, guys, this is why I kind of dislike the whole thing, which again is a completely made up thing, okay, guys? This is completely made up. The elves will not, they're not losing their life force. Their light is not diminishing. That completely contradicts what is in the books, okay? Completely does. So I'm not saying it's not good for storytelling, because it does push the story along quite well in the Rings of Power, and it adds a new dimension to the story, right? It helps with the time compression too, because there's like more like urgency to like, you know, get Mithril, get this, get that, you know, stop Sauron, that kind of thing. So I can understand from a storytelling point of view, but it is incorrect for me with lore, extremely, because it just doesn't, it contradicts too much. So, but from a perspective of what I've been taking, right, of I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to enjoy the show and enjoy it from a multiverse perspective, right? Because it can't possibly fit into Tolkien's, and a lot of people, my friend made a really good point the other day. He said, well, what about in the Lord of the Rings when Arwen is losing her like life force or heat of the elven, and Elrond wants her to go to the Undying Lands? What was that about? Is that the same thing as what the elves are losing in Rings of Power? And it was a really, really good question, which I might make a separate lore video on if you guys want me to. But no, that is a different thing. Arwen is choosing to be human because she's half elven. So she's losing her elven immortality or heat and energy and becoming human when our human hands get cold. That was the whole point of that, okay? Very different than what's happening in the Rings of Power, where they're saying that the elves are starting to lose their life force, and like that tree represents their life force. Kind of copied off how the Númenórean tree, right? The white tree kind of represents their healthiness, right? There and their world. That's obviously what they were taking that from with the elves, because there isn't really an elf tree that does that in those stories. But it was cool. I liked the elf tree thing. I thought it was fine. I was like, okay, gives more urgency to the storytelling. Good. So I'm going to say enjoyed that. Okay. But again, it's a little weird with the, yeah, it just doesn't quite work with the lore on, you know, why they, you know, it helps with the urgency of why they need this mithril. But again, that's why I'm counting this as you know, multiverse. It's a different version because it won't fit with the actual lore. It doesn't. It's an impossibility. There's parameters that will hook on and make sense with the original lore. Like, oh, okay, that's where they changed this completely and then they hooked it to this time lore of the original. Oh, okay. Like there's that works, right? That works entirely. But when it comes to other stuff, it can't work. So, but again, I think I would be disenjoying it, I don't know if that's a word. I wouldn't be enjoying it as much if I was trying to hook it to the actual lore, right? At this point. So I'm just enjoying it for what it is, which honestly, it's a very good standalone fantasy series. It's very, very good. Set in the parameters of Middle-earth, right? With places, locations, names, right? Names of materials like mithril. Again, mithril was originally just a metal, not magical, not any kind of power of the Eldar inside it. Originally, it was a metal that was found by the dwarves in Khazad-dûm because it was there at the creation of the world, kind of like the Arkenstone. A lot of people have the theory that the Arkenstone might be one of the Silmarils. I don't like that theory, personally. Also, there's nothing really super backing that. It's just pretty much like tying it together, kind of like they did with the Rings of Power, where they just kind of like ties it together for fun because it sounded cool. Which again, it sounded cool. It did. Like the whole idea of like, oh, well, they fought over it. In fact, the only thing I really dislike, again, when I break down the whole idea of the elf touching the tree and the Belrog, and then the lightning bolt hits the tree, and the tree had a Silmaril in it, apparently the essence of a Silmaril, which why? How did that get there? I don't know. But anyway, that's their story, right? And it caused Mithril to be created. I don't like the fact that they contribute the strength and awesomeness of Mithril to evil. To Belrogs, right? That the reason it's so strong and powerful is because of a Belrog. I don't like that from a storytelling perspective. Tolkien, I'm pretty sure wouldn't like that because he really liked his distinctions between good and evil. And to say that Mithril is so powerful because it was a combination of evil and good, in my mind, I don't like that personally. If you like that, all power to you, right? Again, I like the distinction that Mithril is its own special material metal that dwarves found. The elves did not know about it until the dwarves started trading with them. Again, I found that was weird, but that might have been a good storytelling point why they did that, right? Because that's why the dwarves metal, right? I mean, that's why the elves knew about it, like, so quickly in the story of the Rings of Power, right? Again, multiverse, different version, right? Okay. So anyway, let's get back to what we're actually looking at here. So he basically says, no, right? The dwarf. I had to go over that again, though, because it was just nagging on my head, and I think that you guys you know, pick and choose what you agree and disagree with me on. That's totally fine, right? Again, if you enjoyed stuff, guys, don't let me ruin it for you, okay? And if there's something you dislike that I love, don't let me change your mind. You do whatever you want to do, right? Like, that's fine. There's a lot of stuff I really enjoyed still. By the way, I love this axe back here. That's so cool. And he's holding the leaf that's being infected or whatever, right? So Elrond gave him the leaf. And Durin's like, this is, you know, father, what the heck? Why won't you help them? Kind of thing. I don't know. I think this could have been acted slightly better. They're great actors. It was very good, but I don't like how intense. I mean, I understand why it's intense, but I don't know. Me personally, I just didn't like it. I didn't like how intense, you know, it is. I liked the other conversation better, right? Where he just got through telling his son, right, in the other episode that even in anger, he still loves him, kind of thing. So, I don't know. But I do know why it's so intense from their made-up line of this multiverse, right? That the elves are going to die without this mithril that has elf essence in it, apparently, right? So anyway, and then they go up here, and basically he talks to Disa, and basically she's mad for him too, and she says, well, you're going to be king someday, and blah, blah, blah. It was kind of like venting. I don't know. They're good actors. It was fine. I would have been frustrated too. I probably also would go and be talking to someone and being frustrated, especially if it was my wife, that someone wasn't, you know, doing something. So that's fine. I'm not going to like or dislike it because it made sense from their storytelling perspective, right? But again, a lot of just kind of, so Elrond comes in and he kind of looks and realizes that the answer is no, right? Because the king said, I'll talk to my son, kind of thing. So, anyway, yeah, and then basically he's like, it's okay, Durin, right? And this is the shot we get from the original trailer. Now I'm finding those original teaser trailers gave us so many freaking spoilers. They gave us no info, and yet now that I've watched the series, I'm like, oh, it was all these spoiled moments kind of thing. Like, why did they show us this? Like, yeah, so anyway. Yeah, so I'll show you another one here in a minute. But I think they could have done a better job with the teasers and trailers, to be honest, originally, a few months ago. So he gives him back the mithril, or he gives it back to Durin. Elrond gives it back, and he's like, you know, it's okay, kind of thing. And it's good acting. It's a good part, right? And I do like this part. There's one thing I like about this part, is that he sets the mithril next to the leaf, Elrond's leaf, and the leaf, like, revives. Like, the black just goes away. So, like, it worked, right? So when Durin sees that it worked, and it's not just a theory, right, that they think the mithril will do that, he's like, Elrond, and calls for him, right? I was like, okay, that was a good part. I like that part. It was very good. So, and then we hop back. So he's happy. Then we hop back to the shot of Mordor. Oh, lore correct. Love it. Look at Mordor, dude. It's so good. Guys, my favorite part about the Rings of Power, right? My favorite part is if we're talking about just scenery and what things look like. I have not personally been disappointed. Some people I've heard been disappointed with Numenor. I am not. I am like, I love Numenor. I think it looks exactly what I envisioned when I read the books, and when I look at the old artwork from all those awesome artists, right, that did his books. I really, really liked it, okay? Mordor looks amazing. Lindon looks great. Khazad-dûm looks great, right? Region looks great. Region, whatever you want to call it, right? They call it a Region in the... I always used to call it a Region, but then some people were telling me it was a region, so I started calling it that. And then the movie's calling it a Region again, so I might just stick to what I used to call it a long time ago. But, yeah. They all look great. All the locations the hobbits are at, Greenwood, all the places they're traveling, all those beautiful shots of places as they're traveling through. Oh yeah, I'm all for that. The scenery is amazing. So then we get to this spot where basically they don't know where everyone is, but she's protecting the kid. Blah blah blah. I was like, all right, that's fine. She gives him a nice little motivational speech. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine. It felt like a more wise version of Galadriel. I enjoyed it. So now you're seeing they're basically, the Southerners are leading with the Númenóreans, the Southlanders, excuse me, and they're moving and leaving, and he is like looking for people, right? He's like, where's my son, Elendil, right? Yeah, Elendil. And basically what happens here is he thinks he sees him and it's some other kid, of course, right? It was pretty predictable. But then he realizes and he finds the queen. He finds out she's blind, right? It's like, oh my, oh no, right? And then they flip back to the kid and the Galadriel, who are separate again. Again, the whole part is actually really well acted, all of it. So I enjoyed all of it. So I'm going to say I enjoyed that part because it was good. So now they're traveling through the wasteland. And they're just basically, yeah, they're just talking. This is the motivational speech, by the way, that I was talking about. She basically gives him her sword. I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea when this orc's still around, personally. She has a dagger now. So, from a realistic point of view, From a cool motivational point of view, I liked. Right? Like, dislike for that part. So anyway, now he finds out. This is actually where he finds out she's blind because she's like says something, and he's like, oh no, right, kind of thing. So let's just keep going through here. They're like, oh crap, right? And then we hop back to the hobbits, right? So as we know from the hobbits last time. All right, here we go. Beautiful shot. So this is like the edge of Greenwood, I would assume, in the south. Beautiful. Looks amazing. Love it. Great scenery. You guys did a great job. Again, the hobbits have grown on me. I've actually enjoyed the hobbits quite a bit in this series. I think they're all excellent actors, and I probably why I like it so much. So that's awesome. And he's talking with him, and he basically says, you helped us a lot. Here is a star map he gives to the big, old meteor man, right? I'm just calling him meteor man because we still don't know what he's called, right, at this point. We will know what he's called in episode 8. So, or we think we know what he's called. You want a spoiler ahead of time? No, I will wait for episode 8. We'll talk about it then. All right, so we move through here, right? I don't want to give spoilers of 8 and 7 in case someone hasn't watched 8 yet. They've only watched 7. They want to watch the review. So I'm going to be careful what I say. Because I would be annoyed if I watched someone's review before they gave me a spoiler of the next episode. So I'm not going to do that. All right. So basically we're going through here. I'm going through on parts I want to talk about. There's a lot of just beautiful shots. And then she basically gives him an apple, says goodbye, tells him which direction he should go. And he leaves off into the woods, right? Into the Mirkwood woods. And then they go back into, she becomes basically kind of dejected, kind of down, right? For right reason. She feels like she caused a lot of the problems in the last few days. And she's like, I shouldn't have done that, right? Kind of thing. It was actually it was very good. She seemed like she matured, right? In a second, but almost in a negative way where she kind of she's just gonna go back to being a hiding hobbit kind of thing instead of being more adventurous, right? Again, it's a whole bounce back and call back to Frodo and in the future Frodo and Bilbo, so I like it. Again, they've been doing a lot of in the last 2 or 3 episodes. The last 3 episodes, including episode 8, which isn't a spoiler, but they're doing a lot of callbacks to Peter Jackson's adaptations that they legally can do. And, or hints back at things they say or do. I like it. I've actually enjoyed it. I think it helps tie things in a little bit. The sword, by the way, Galadriel's sword, I must say, the dagger, I really like the dagger. And if they make a replica, I'm getting it and I'm going to review it on the channel. Because the sword is awesome. The sword is, I like it's the 2 trees. Telperion and Laurelin, and they're wrapped in it just looks really cool. I love the dagger, or her brother's dagger, Finrod's dagger that she uses. I think the dagger is very cool. All right, so they have a conversation here, and then they hear something, right? Again, this whole conversation is hold on. There's one thing in this conversation that actually blew me and my friend's mind in a bad and good way. She makes a comment that she lost her brother, right? And he's like, who else have you lost? And she goes, okay, this one got me a little bit. This is the one thing in episode 7 that bothered me quite a bit. Otherwise, I actually enjoyed a lot of episode 7. She makes a comment that she lost Celebrimbor, her husband, right? Which, so good. I will give a correct so that she is married at this point. So correct in lore right there. But a discorrect on, wait, what? She lost her husband before the war? She really vaguely gives us vague information about it, okay? And it's oh, that's totally random. And again, from a storytelling, You know, a few people have said this that have done reviews already. I haven't watched anyone's reviews yet. I've just heard a couple mentions of things, but a lot of people were saying they don't really like the whole mystery thing, basket kind of thing, and they're almost doing that too much in Rings of Power for me. Now, for someone who doesn't know anything about the lore and just enjoying it for open fantasy series, maybe it's really fun and exciting, right? But for me, who's someone who knows a lot of the stuff, I'm kind of like getting confused. And I think they're doing that on purpose because they want to kind of confuse people to make it more fun for people who know about the lore. But again, of course, they change so much that it's like, what are they changing, right? It's almost like, yeah. So I didn't like that, though, that she's like, I don't know where my husband is. It's like, what? What? He lost him during the war or something, which is how many hundreds of thousands of years ago? Yeah, anyway, I that part was weird to me. It felt really like I would like just another sentence of information that I believe he's here or something like that. Something like that. Some kind of connecting thing, even if it is made up for their version of the stories, right? I would have enjoyed that. It would have helped me enjoy that part a little more. But again, what she says to him is encouraging and good, and then they hear orcs and they hide, and he pulls out the sword, and then they see it, and he's like, what do you smell? And I thought for sure the line was going to be man flesh, right? But he goes, no, all I smell is ash. And I was like, you got me, right? So again, I like that part, so I liked it. So let's keep on going here. And then we get a shot of Khazad-dûm. All right, that we go back to Khazad-dûm, and basically Elrond and Durin the son. Again, it's confusing. I think it's Durin the third. Or he's the fourth. He might be the fourth. Durin the third is the old dad. They're mining anyway, basically without telling him, and they break through, and it's like doing earthquakes and stuff. It's kind of cool. I'm gonna say I enjoyed this part. I liked it a lot. I thought their conversations were good too. It was very, very friendship building. I really like Elrond. I think they did a good job with Elrond. I think they did a good job with his younger Durin. They're really like thumbs up for me with character. Yeah, even though they're not exactly like obviously the stories, but again, Durin doesn't really have that particular Durin the Third doesn't really have a story at that time. Really, it's only the elves that are being told about by Tolkien. So they kind of had to make up the personality. So I thought they did a good job with Durin. Okay, so that is something that's totally they had to make up from scratch. They had to be creative with that, right? Oh, don't want to start it here. So anyway, we're gonna fly through. They have good conversation, and then they break through this hole, and they look through, and we see the cool mithril veins, right? Which are very, very cool. And again, he's looking through the hole, and he's like, oh my gosh, they're all over the place, right? And you can see there's just mithril everywhere. Super cool. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, right? And then we get to the point where, and then he comes in with guards, basically the dad. He's like, how dare you guys do this? How dare you? You know what I mean, kind of thing. So he kicks Elrond out, basically, of Khazad-dûm. It's like, okay, that makes sense, right? They just totally broke what he said. It's like, that makes sense. And then again, Durin has this whole conversation was in my mind. This is the one I was kind of hinting towards previously. I did not like this conversation. I thought it was just too cutthroat. Like he makes a comment about his mom and he's like, never use your mom's for. I was just like, I don't know. I understand that it's really intense, but it could have been a little bit more regal. Right? They could have still been intense. It was just how they wrote it. It was the writer. So I just liked how they wrote it. Maybe you enjoyed it. So if you enjoyed it, don't let me ruin it for you. But me personally, it was too intense. It kind of hit too home for me because, on a side note, my father was very abusive with words. So, but even though he isn't the father in this one, the younger one is kind of, and they're kind of like intense exchange back and forth. So it bothered me because it brought back my real life memories, right? I brought my life memories into the scenario, right? Which is what happens with every person. That's why every person has different looks at things. Again, maybe you enjoyed this part, but I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was too intense. So I'm going to dislike it. And I didn't think it was necessary. Honestly, I didn't think it was necessary for the storytelling. To be totally frank, I was like, this was all not needed. You could have done this in 30 seconds and made it a little bit less intense instead of 2 minutes of stress, right? It changed the feeling for me for a while. So anyway, but that's okay. So we're moving on. Now we pop back to the hobbits great, happy. Basically what happened is his magic worked, right? The Meteor Man, and it looks beautiful, and I love this shot. Super happy. Again, I was like, it was weird change of emotions because we went from being like super negative to like super happy. And I was like, whoa, right? Like, which is good. I'm glad they changed it because like you don't want to have a negative feeling about the entire episode. But I really like this part. I like the Hobbits, so I enjoyed the Hobbit part here. So, and then they're collecting all these resources. They're all happy in the water. They're getting water. Poppy's getting water. And then basically the things left, and we see that these scary ladies are here again, right? These three, right? Okay. What do you guys think about? Leave a comment. What do you think about these three characters? I honestly think I think their get-up could be a little different. Like, I don't know. I mean, they're obviously bad guys, right? They did a good job on that. They're obviously bad guys, right? Oh, bad ladies, because I think they're all supposed to be girls. But yeah. So anyway, so they're obviously looking for someone, and they basically come out here and they're like looking, and the hobbits are all hiding because they kind of know, and basically they're obviously looking for Meteor Man, which we knew that already, right? So, so then we get basically Poppy comes up and says, no, don't. And then the dad protects her and says, don't touch my daughter, kind of thing, right? And they're like giant, right? They did a good job making them look tiny compared to them. Good job. Lower perspective. I like the lower perspective, right? Tiny hobbits versus human-sized people. And honestly, like, they're not super, like, menacing until episode 8. That's all I'm going to say. I won't give spoilers. But they were in episode 8. They were good in episode 8. But this is menacing. She, for no reason, takes his fire, right? Because apparently, and she, like, with magic, and she basically puts their entire camp on fire. By the way, here's that menacing blowing from the trailer, right? That we saw. She basically puts their entire camp on fire, right? Which is terrible and really sad and horribly sad, actually. And it was very, very sad, right? Like, it's a really sad part. So, again, a lot of sad parts in this episode 7. But it makes sense once you watch episode 8, right? But again, it kind of like, wow, what a jerk, right? Like, I know that this is fine, though, because I know they have to do stuff like this for storytelling, make some sad points, so it was fine. So let's hop to the next part here. This shot is amazing, all right? Absolutely amazing. Give it a like there. So this shot is the episode 7 of basically their Numenorian camp. Basically probably the borders of the sea more, or the mountain ranges. Maybe these are I would assume that these are the mountains around like where Minas Ithil or Dol Guldur is later. Maybe it's one of the passes, right? They've gone out of the southern lands, so they're outside of the smoke of the volcano. Beautiful shots. I absolutely love these shots. And then you kind of get to see their whole, like, and I feel like their armor's almost better in this one than the other ones. So again, their armor's grown on me. At first I wasn't sure about it, but now I kind of like the Numenorian armor. I think it looks cool. I like this star right here. That's pretty cool. Look at that on the shoulder. He calms the horse that basically is Isildur's. He thinks Isildur's dead. The horse is very rambunctious because I have a feeling Isildur is not dead, right? Not spoilers because we actually don't find that out in episode 8. But my guess is, that's my hint. My guess he's not dead. We'll find out in season 2 probably. So beautiful shot. Look at that shot. He lets the horse go. And no doubt, this is a reminisce back to who in the Two Towers movies? Aragorn, right? When the horse comes and gets him, right, out of the river, when they think he's dead after the warg attack. I'm assuming this is going to be the same thing in season 2. That's my guess. I actually like it. I like it. I know some people are going to be like, oh, it's so silly they're using like copy. I like it. And I think that this visual view right here is just amazing. The views in episode 7, they had a lot of views that I really enjoyed. So I'm going to say I lore correct because I just love the views. And again, we get another shot of the awesome view in the camp. The camp looks fine. Like, I like it. Now, that camp, realistically, how many people could that camp hold? I don't know if it could hold quite as many people as they said had come. That was a problem in the other episode where they said there were 500 people on each of those ships right when they first came. I was kind of comparing looking at those ships, and I'm thinking those ships are not big enough from a standpoint of a lot of stuff I've studied with ships. But we'll let it slide. because it's not that big of an issue from a fantasy point of view. Again, it's a realism thing, you know. It would have make more sense if they said 500 men on all 3 ships. Then I would have been like, oh, totally makes sense. But they have been 500 in each ship, so unless I misheard that. All right. So anyway, basically, he doesn't know where his mom is at this point. He still doesn't know. Okay. He's looking around, and he sees this one like person with the thing over, and he's like, oh no, is that my mom dead under that, you know, thing? And then it's not. His mom's behind him, and it's really happy, and I like it. I know everyone's like, it's corny, but I like it. I love that part. I thought it was good. All right, moving on. Galadriel comes in. They have a conversation. Oh gosh, their names are so close. Halbrand is the human, right? And oh gosh, I can't think of the elf's name right now. This guy. Sorry, you know what I'm talking about. But they both have an H in their names, so right, with similar letters. So basically, she is now blind. Galadriel comes up here. He is now conflicted, apparently, to whether he wants to stay or not in Middle Earth. He kind of wants to go back to he thinks his son's dead. He's really upset. Elendil, right? Excuse me, Elendil. Oh wait, no. I always do that. I start mixing up those 2 names. But he's really conflicted, right? So he's talking to her. They're working stuff out. And then he's like, Galadriel's here. He's not happy because he thinks that him picking up Galadriel is what the reason his son's dead and all this issues. Again, the scenes in the background are gorgeous where they did this conversation. She now realizes she's kind of at fault with everything that's happened, and she actually has some remorse. But basically, they plan on, they're going to go back and come back, and he's like, I'm not sure about that, right? And she actually cries a little bit, and it's like, you know, because she sees she's wounded too. And it was fine. This whole part's fine. Again, I wasn't sure. It just, I didn't have any massive emotional ways either way. It wasn't an emotional way of I disliked it. It wasn't an emotional way of like, oh, that was amazing. It was kind of like, okay, all right, good. Continue the story, right? So it's not going to get anything from me. But he is really upset because he just wants to go back to Numenor, right? Kind of thing. So he's trying not to show that he's upset, kind of thing. He's a good actor. He's a really good actor. And again, most of these people are really good actors. I don't think the acting is any of the issue. I think the only issues I've seen from a standalone point of view of this series is some of the story writing, right? And I'm not saying because they changed lore points. I'm saying actual within their own context of their multiverse storyline. Some things didn't make sense. 1 or 2 things. Not a ton. Some of it was very good. But 1 or 2 things for me didn't make sense, which we've already gone over in other videos, other reviews. So we'll continue on. But I think all their acting is excellent. I think they're all great actors. So basically they're like, we're going to go after, they're like, obviously those scary 3 women are after the guys. So they're like, we should go go help him. And she's like, I have to go help him. And basically I like this part because the old man says, I'm the only guide, you know, I'll go take you. Right. So I like this whole part. I thought it was a really good conversation. Again, you can watch it yourself. It's not super great, and basically he's like, we're probably all gonna die, which was funny and laughable. So again, I like this part. Again, look at the visuals. I love the visuals. Look at that shot. That is totally Middle Earth, and Greenwood makes sense. You're going into Greenwood, right? It's awesome. Again, I really like the ships. I really love the ships. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I really like the ships. I said that like 3 times, but yes, I thoroughly enjoyed them. But they're going back to Middle Earth here, and then they flash back to, there goes the Numenorian. She's still on Middle Earth, and they're still at the camp. So they're off, right? The queen and stuff is going back to Numenor. This is most likely the river that goes along down. I'm sorry, you can't see the boat. It's right behind the corner of my little thing here. Look, down there. See the boat? There's the boat. Okay. So they're off back to Numenor. They're going to bring help, bring more people kind of thing. And then these 3 characters, right, are all talking. It's a fine conversation. This is what we saw in this teaser, this whole area originally in pictures. So now we know. And again, Galadriel is acting a lot more. I like how she starts acting in this episode a lot more than the previous ones. She's growing on me with like what they're having her act. Again, she's a good actress herself. I think it's what they're telling her to act is what I didn't like originally in the first few episodes. Honestly, I think that's after I broke it down in my own mind. Maybe you loved it, though. If you loved it, great. That's fantastic. Don't let me change your mind. So he's been wounded, right? Stabbed in the side. All right, Halbrand, he's like, I'm so wounded, right? Basically. And they're like, he needs elvish medicine, she says. I'm like, oh, I called it. I knew she was going to say it. I'm like, she's going to say, and then she said it, and I laughed really hard because I was like, ha, of course she's going to say that. So anyway, they basically ride from this location all the way to a region, okay? Which I'm like, holy moly, that's far. But realistic, she says, I think like 5 or 6 days, which if they're riding full speed, that's about 5 or 6 days. So from a lore perspective with geography, good. So anyway, they're taking Halbrand. He's wounded. All the southern lands kind of bow and cheer kind of thing. They're taking him to get... she tells the boy to keep the sword, right? Which, remember, we saw the sword being held up in the trailer. Again, great shots. I thought this part was cool. And they ride off, right? All right, so he holds the sword up. That's the shot we see in the trailer, right, originally. It's the boy, basically, with her sword. The sword is... At first, I wasn't sure about the swords. This sword grew on me a lot more than the previous swords. It actually looks a little different than the swords we saw at the very beginning when they were in the frozen north, right, in the Fortawaith. So, yeah, it's fine. All right, so now we hop back to this conversation, and they're having another conversation, basically another frustration, but she's like, you'll be king someday, kind of thing. And she's kind of just encouraging him, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. And then they do a little kiss. It's like, it's kind of funny. He laughs, right? So it is good. So again, enjoyed that part, right? Yeah. All right, let's continue on. And again, you see there's a lot more likes I'm enjoying, like, in this one now that I'm kind of breaking it down in my own mind as a multiverse. I would have a lot more dislikes probably if I was still trying to match everything to the actual lore. Okay? Side note there. He sees that the leaf is fixed thanks to Durin, and he basically throws the leaf into the hole they opened, into the chasm of Mithril, and he says, well, close it up to the dwarves, and they're like going to close it up. And the leaf falls all the way to the ground, and I don't know if I can get the shot here. If they show it here, there it is. Basically, the leaf will accept a Balrog. Nah. As much as I'm going to say I love it, that there's a Balrog, right? I dislike the fact that it was a leaf that woke him up. Like, a leaf? And again, this is probably the idea of this is the Balrog that was fighting the elf, and the Balrog is now guarding its mithril. That's also a weird thought, because in the story lore, in the original lore, the Balrog is woken up because they're just digging deeper and deeper, trying to find more and more mithril. So, it fits with the original, but it's still a little bit different. So, I would have liked I would have liked to think better if they had broken out the rock. This is my own personal opinion. If I was going to write this story plot, because it's different than the original, right? The rock fell out and went tunk, tunk, boom on the ground, and then you heard, and then they showed this, right? That would have been better than the leaf going dink, and just touching the ground, and he's like, and he like wakes up, and it's like, okay, well maybe he's really sensitive and he just heard a leaf, but I don't know. That felt weird to me. That was a weird way to wake up a Balrog. Okay, so again, we know there should be a Balrog though, so from a lore perspective, so I'm gonna say dislike of the lore that they woke it up, but I'm gonna say it like the fact that there is a Balrog down here in the Second Age. They do wake it up, so that is following the lore. There should be a Balrog, right? This Balrog has smoky more wings. It doesn't look like he has physical wings as much. Maybe we'll see. Either they'll do the wings like Peter Jackson's. Maybe they won't do the wings. Maybe they'll follow more what we know, that they're more like a smoke vapor wings, right? From the lore. Again, some people think they should have rings. Some people think they shouldn't. Tolkien does leave it a little vague in his description. You really could take it either way. But if you do look at all his things, I think probably they don't really physically have wings, but I think that it looks really cool because they're kind of like a fallen Maiar, so they're kind of like demons. So I think it's kind of cool they have wings. So I like the wings, you know, though I understand why some people think they shouldn't have them. Okay, again, not that important, but it's fun to talk about, right? That's why we like to talk about it. It's not that we're trying to attack people or, you know. So anyway, he basically says, you know, we've basically done it. We've turned it to Mordor, right? We get a shot of these guys again over here. And then, you know, just in case people didn't catch it, they're like, the Southlands. And then suddenly it says, Mordor. they change it, right? And again, this is for, obviously, for people who don't know anything about Lord of the Rings. This is for people coming in watching the show for the first time. So my hope thing of this series is that a lot of people will watch this series, enjoy it for themselves, and then go, I want to read the books, and then read the books, and then be like, oh wow, a lot of stuff's changed from the books, but man, this is still, because a lot of people, the Peter Jackson's brought people to Tolkien, right? Because it really blew it up, right? The Tolkien's books were very famous, Lord of the Rings, but obviously the movies really brought it out. So hopefully I'm thinking that the Rings of Power will help bring more love to Tolkien. And again, if you are in like Tolkien content, you should definitely like and subscribe, my friends, if I earned it. But again, I try to keep really balanced reviews. I wasn't originally going to review Rings of Power, but I decided to because it's kind of relevant in our time, right? There's a lot of battling around it, and I don't know why people are so intense around it. Just enjoy it if you enjoy it, guys, and if you dislike it, just don't watch it, right? It does not for those people who dislike it, guys. It will not affect our books, right? It will not affect our love of what we already love, what Tolkien already wrote, right? Those are in stone. Those are not being changed, right? Adaptations are going to change. There might be other adaptations that are like Rings of Power in the future that other companies make, right? Who knows what will happen in the next 20 years in reality, right? But again, I must say I have enjoyed watching with my family. I have enjoyed the series. For me personally, me changing it to saying that this is a multiverse and stop trying to compare it to every little lore thing, that helps me enjoy it more because I was like, I chilled out, kind of. You know what I'm saying? I kind of chilled out. Again, that doesn't mean that I am not fervently always going to follow the books over Rings of Power. So if there's something that someone asks me a lore question, of course I'm going to tell you what Tolkien says over what Rings of Power says if it's something that Rings of Power had changed, obviously. But again, Peter Jackson changed a few things too. Not as drastically as Rings of Power has, mind you. But Peter Jackson did change things as well. So, but again, I enjoyed it. Thank you for watching this review of my episode 7. You guys have a wonderful day in Middle-earth. To all you out there, be happy. Have a great day in Middle-earth. Thank you to my wonderful Patreons for their support. I like that my little fire rim looks really good with Mordor behind there. Subscribe button's going to be there if I earned it. Next episode's up there, and my other for episode 8 will be up there for you guys. I will have that out within the day and next day after this one. Or if you just watched this, it'll be probably already out. And right over there is my low shirt tail and main content, Lord of the Rings Online. So you guys have a wonderful day in Middle-earth, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Voice of the Rings. And have fun out there, my friends, and enjoy yourselves. And don't get caught up in battles and things people have over fantasy stuff, guys. It's like, just enjoy yourself, right? You enjoy what you enjoy, you dislike what you dislike, right? Just whatever your opinion is, you keep your own opinion, right? That's the goal. That's the goal. Again, this is my opinion. This is Zollin's opinion playlist. This is my playlist where I review things and give you my personal opinions, right? All right. You guys have a wonderful day in Middle-earth, and I'll see you on the next episode of Voice of the Rings. See ya.